Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it's Tuesday morning. If I can figure out what day it is, we have Laith Marouf live from Beirut, Lebanon, so we can find out what's happening from the heart of West Asia. Let's talk. I'm a guy, I've always liked sports, right? I played sports when I was young. And one thing I found out about sports, I played basketball in high school, played basketball in community college. And as an example, one of the things I learned my community college coach, which was much better in basketball, and I'm going somewhere with this, Laith, is how to find a weakness. When you're in high school playing sports, they teach you the fundamentals on how to play. When you go to start playing in college, there's another level, right? And the first thing I'll never forget, my coach taught me was figure out whether the guy is left-handed or right-handed. And if he's right-handed, take away his right hand and see if he can go left. If he's left-handed, take away his left hand, see if he can go right. If you find a weakness, if you find this guy can't go left, you own him. Now, because you take away his right and force him to his weak side. The reason I'm saying this is, apparently, Iran has exposed a significant weakness in Western air defenses in that you can use cheap drones to overwhelm them and beat the crap out of them. And apparently, that's happening again. Now that I've done that lead in, let's get started. Laith Marouf, before we get into that, I just want to let everybody know where we're going to start. Before we get into that, Laith Marouf is a great journalist. He's actually, believe it or not, doesn't call himself one, but I consider him a historian because he has, if you listen to him discuss, you'll find out that he has a tremendous amount of knowledge about the history, not just history in West Asia, but history all throughout Europe, etc. And he has a website that he works, the group that he works with. Go to freepalestine.video. Now, if it's called freepalestine.video, you got to go to that website, number one, to support the cause. And number two, when you go there, make sure you donate. What's happening there is they are right out of the heart of West Asia, in an area that's dangerous for them in any number of ways. They're doing English language journalism. They're working with young journalists. They're working with a lot of people. So go to freepalestine.video and donate. If you can't afford to donate, some of us can't, no problem. Just share this on all your social media platforms. When you share the link to freepalestine.video, put up there, please go and donate and help the cause. We got to keep that going. All right, let's go back to what I was saying. Israel can't go left. Here's what I'm saying. Breaking resistance in Lebanon announces they used a swarm of decoy drones to overwhelm air defenses in North occupied Palestine, while suicide drones hit the Shraga base north of Aqsa, where the Golani Brigade is headquartered, in retaliation to attacks this morning on Adlan village. So now what are we going to see? We're going to see people, after watching what I would, after you see, oh my gosh, Iran swarmed in a bunch of drones, overwhelmed their system, and then they were able to take advantage of that and hit them with whatever they want. It looks like Israel's got a hole in, as they say in baseball, they got a hole in their swing.
Oh yeah. And it showed us what Iran did is that all of the axis of resistance, including Hezbollah and Ansarullah in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, they both have that technology that Iran has. And up until now in this war, they've been choosing to hold back because, the intent is to have the least number of human casualty in the region in the process of liberation of Palestine. So we saw the destruction of the Israeli military ground forces in Gaza, unable to defeat 25,000 fighters, 500,000 Israeli soldiers, unable to defeat them for 6.5 months. Now it's 200 days of this ground war. And so as Israel pulls back from confronting Iran. You see, the Netanyahu wanted to drag the United States into a confrontation with Iran, and he was unable to. He couldn't respond to Iran's capabilities. Now we see the Israelis trying to have a regional war, but with the non-state actors like Hezbollah. So over the last 5 days, there was 3 different assassinations of Hezbollah commanders, one of them being mentioned today in this statement of Hezbollah. And as we see, Hezbollah now raised the intensity of their attacks because also they destroyed practically all the front line and second line Israeli bases on the border with Lebanon. Now they're hitting the command bases that are around 25, 30 kilometers away from the border with this new tactic that, of course, they have learned from the Iranians and they were ready for it. And yesterday they also attacked in Safad, close to the Tabariya Lake, or the Sea of Galilee as it's called in English. And that's, again, I'm showing you how far they're going. If there is a full confrontation with Hezbollah, honestly, Iran doesn't have to intervene. Hezbollah will defeat Israel. And maybe then, Netanyahu would get the American involvement. But he will continue trying to get the Americans involved somehow, because he has lost all upper hand in the air, on the ground, in the surveillance, as we see with Hezbollah picking these targets carefully and knowing where the commands are. So it's a total defeat on all fronts for Israel, and we're going to continue seeing that unroll in this battle.
It seems to me that, and I mean, the worst thing you can do is telegraph what you're going to do next, right? It seems to me, whether they're going to do it or not, I have my doubts. But as Israel continues to say, we're going to attack Hezbollah next, we're going to go to Lebanon next, it seems to me that these targets are carefully prepared, that rather than just attack random targets, it seems to me that Hezbollah is weakening the Israel's abilities in its area, so that if Israel does decide to foolishly attack, these seems like I said, not just random targets. They're basically, since you're saying you're going to attack me, I'm going to weaken your intelligence, your command and control, your radar, weaken all of that, so that if they do decide to attack, they will be weaker. Do you think that, I mean, what are your thoughts on Hezbollah, the reason they're picking the specific targets that they're taking?
Just 4 or 5 days ago, just after our last episode, Hezbollah targeted a quote-unquote community center in a Arabic Palestinian citizens of Israel town called Arab al-Aramsha, that is in the north in the Galilee. This town, because it's Palestinian Israelis, they're not scared, they didn't leave. All the other towns around it have been emptied, the colonists left. And so the Israeli soldiers have been finding it very hard to hide anywhere. Their bases have been destroyed. The colonies that could be friendly to them are empty. So if they go and hide there, their movement is very visible for Hezbollah. So what they did, the Israelis, is they took over the community center in this Palestinian Israeli town, Arab al-Aramshe, and made it into a command center for their activities in the north east of the Galilee. And of course, they were using the Palestinian civilians as human shields, hoping that Hezbollah doesn't target this town because it's Palestinian. And they were hiding within the civilian infrastructure, a community center. Well, Hezbollah actually spotted them, watched all their movement, waited for the brigadier general that commands the whole sector to arrive in his jeep before hitting it with multiple suicide drones. And they filmed from the drone, they showed the footage. It's crazy, like the Zionists covered the top of the community center. It has like a glass pyramid on top, lighting up the hall inside. They covered it with tarp, the Israelis, and you see this drone coming in and hitting in between the flap of the of the tarp in the glass. And this caused at least 18 Israeli soldiers injured, according to the Israeli sources, with 4 of them dead. They never announced was the rank of these people dead. We saw the commander's Hummer arriving at the scene and being hit at the same time. So we know that the those who were liquidated in this attack were of very high value. And since that day, the Israelis have been doing this tit for tat with Hezbollah, targeting commanders of Hezbollah. 3 of them have been assassinated over the last 5-6 days. And in retaliation, as we see, Hezbollah is now targeting the command centers through minute-to-minute surveillance. This is an achievement for Hezbollah that is on par with the most advanced intelligence gathering in the planet.
Yeah. Your thoughts on there? I know we recently had some mass graves found at hospitals. We found some more horrific evidence of war crimes by the Zionist regime as they left some of the hospitals. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, yesterday and the day before, there's been continuous digging of the grounds around Al-Nasser Hospital, and there's been 380 bodies pulled out of the rubble. There's still more under, and it is mostly the doctors and the nurses and the patients that were in the hospital when the Israelis occupied it. They were assassinated point blank, children, women, men. And we also saw evidence of organ harvesting. Many of these bodies had their organs missing. There's even a few bodies that had got deskinned. So somebody from these Israeli, ghouls decided to skin some of these bodies and take the skin for whatever medical or experimental needs or wacko needs. I don't know. Maybe it's like Hannibal from The Silence of the Lambs. But the images are horrific, and the fact that much of the Western media has decided to ignore this story shows you how damaging it is for the Zionists. And luckily, of course, Palestinians have been sharing the images and the videos of the digging up of everything. Everything is recorded now. People can find this information. It's very disturbing, of course, the images. But at this point, we should be expecting everything scary, everything disgusting, all the nightmares that we can think about. We should be expecting them from the Zionists, and there's no one in the Western elite that wants to stop them. So they will continue to do these things until they are defeated through the battlefield. Nobody will stop them but the resistance. You could hear right now, how much this, 200 days of war have changed the opinions of people in the streets in the West, but also even opinions of some in the Arabic world that could have been open for some negotiations or what have you. There's no more. It's out in the open, and to see how the West is treating its students right now. By the way, we should talk about that. People should be prepared for this war is going to continue. It's going to go on for at least the American elections time, if not further. But between now and the American elections time, the intensity of this war is going to increase and the battle zone of it, but without the inclusion of Iran in it. I think people in the West should be preparing themselves for the mass arrests that are going to come once this war starts affecting the elections in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. Americans, I always say this, Americans, as the what's the old saying? The America is a country with insignificant powers to the east and west. I mean, excuse me, to the north and south, and fish to the east and west. So America is so far removed that Americans are always feel like it's not going to affect them, and it's not real because it is going to affect them. I think it's just a matter of time before we see the instability in West Asia have a dramatic effect on like fuel prices, on gas prices. It's just a matter of time, and when that happens, Americans will wake up once they feel the pain. I think. Let's talk about something that I can. Maybe you can update me. I don't know if there's any update on it, but I do want to get your thoughts. One of the things that I thought was very significant in the confrontation between Iran and Israel and occupied Palestine, the Israeli regime, was Jordan. You know, Jordan has, you know, the government of Jordan, the half British king of Jordan, has kind of played the role as though, no, he's really, you know, on the side of the Palestinians or whatever the case may be. And now we saw the military of Jordan literally fighting alongside Israel, fighting to protect their colonial masters. It was pretty embarrassing to me. To me, it was an embarrassing thing to see these people fighting alongside their colonial masters. How is that affecting dynamics in the region? What are you hearing out of Jordan? What do you think the repercussions of that are?
It was definitely humiliating for all Arabs and for Jordanians specifically to see this.
Oh, sorry, we just lost Laith. I'm sure he's going to be right back. Let's see. Waiting for Laith. Hopefully he'll get back on. Let me see. This was, and look, we're just getting to the good stuff. I think his device, it just says device not connected. So I don't think he, let's see what happened. Maybe here's what I'll do. Okay, good. He's gone. He'll be back on shortly. There we go. He dropped. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what happened when the Iranians launched their reprisal against the Jordanians, against Israel. There we go.
Sorry
All right.
about that.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, we're back. We're used to having a few bumps in the road. Okay, let's get back to Jordan. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, it was very humiliating, I think, for Jordanians in general, what happened. And, you know, there was demonstrations here in Lebanon in front of the Jordanian embassy, condemning what the regime there and the military did in collaboration with them. Of course, before that, there was daily demonstrations in Jordan against the war in Gaza and against the bringing in of goods supply line through Jordan to the Israelis. And in fact, what we saw is the Jordanian government taking advantage of Iran's attack on the Zionists to, you know, push this campaign of Jordan first, you know, like America first. And we saw the foreign affairs minister of Jordan speak at the Security Council, claiming that they will shoot down anyone that breaches their sovereignty, whether Iranian or Israeli. And of course, that was a lie, because for years now, the Jordanians have been allowing the Israelis to fly over them to hit Syria and Iraq and the Syrian military and the Iraqi military, and never did they open their mouth with one peep. They didn't shoot anything on top. And of course, when the Zionists did the theatrics of their response to Iran, they flew also over Jordan to bomb Iraq and Syria again. And the Jordanians didn't say anything. They didn't condemn anybody. They didn't shoot anything. And we saw the Jordanian government basically ban all the demonstrations against the genocide in Gaza, and have rounded up hundreds of people that were active online or in the streets against the policies of the state. And then they organized this fake demonstration. They brought all these intelligence and military, people on leave, and put them in the street with everybody carrying the Jordanian flag and waving it, and the picture of the king. It was a hilarious display, and we saw all these Jordanian trolls on the social media, flood the accounts of anybody that posted anything critical of Jordan, swearing at them, saying Jordan, the safety of Jordan is above anything, and blah, 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 and using all these racist terms or sectarian terms to attack any criticism. So clearly Jordan right now is on the edge. The regime has lost all its credibility in front of its people. Truly the only thing that they have left is to scare people about the outcome of war in the region, that they could, see what happened in Syria or Iraq happen to them. That's the last thing that they can do. And that's getting to be a tired thing, that they've been, repeating that since 2011 anyways. So it's not sticking with the population. And in the situation that there is an all-out war, definitely Jordan will be trampled between the warring parties, and the United States, that couldn't protect its crown jewel colony, Israel, definitely cannot protect them. If this PlayStation king, as they call him, he used to play a lot of PlayStation and post videos of himself. If this PlayStation king had any working brain cells in his head, he would be moving to abandon his alliance with the United States now, so he will be spared in the situation of a greater war. But I don't think he's that smart, and I don't think he has any independence to do that. So unfortunately, the Jordanian king and his military are dragging Jordan into the sinking ship of the Zionist colony.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There's something else I wanted to ask you about. We have not talked since the last time we talked. The Iran Israel confrontation was still going on, and the discussion was how and when and in what capacity will Israel retaliate, respond, right? And there were people, there's going to be a massive response. We've heard all kind of propaganda about what they would have done, what they tried to do, blah, blah, blah. My understanding is right behind me is a little quadcopter, little DJI drone, right? Believe it or not, I bought it used from a guy for $150. He had it, bought it a couple of years ago, and he left it. He goes, I never used this thing. I'll sell it to you for $150. I paid like $500-600. I'm like, I'll take it. I bought it, right? And my understanding is like a half a dozen of these flew in. Iran shot them down and said, there's really no need for us to respond because we're not even going to consider that an attack or a retaliation. Now, in the West, they did propaganda. Israel attacked bases everywhere, missiles, you name it. I mean, everything, explosions, and it was like a half a dozen quadcopters. Your thoughts on the feeble, symbolic response from Israel after all of the talk that they were going to take out Iran, and they kind of embarrassed themselves.
Well, with that drone now, there's probably a job offer to.
I've got half the firepower Israel right here.
Yeah, you can be a member of the Israeli Air Force, like with that drone. It's really telling.
Were you surprised also? Did you expect a stronger response? Were you shocked by the lack of veracity, the lack of power of that response? Or really, let's face it, it wasn't a response.
It was not a response, and I before it happened, I was trying to think, and I sat down with people that are weapons experts, and I was trying to figure out what can Israel do. Okay, so they could have used long-range missiles like the Jericho missiles that they have, but usually these come with the nuclear warhead. Are they going to use them without the nuclear warhead? And then the day that comes that they want to use them with nuclear warhead, there's nothing left. So it wasn't logical. It didn't make sense for them to fly F-16s or F-35s because it's a one-way suicide mission. I thought about it, and we couldn't figure out what they can do. And clearly, they also thought about it, and they found out that they couldn't do nothing. You know, it wasn't just me that I wasn't creative enough to figure out something that they can do without dragging the whole world into a nuclear holocaust. So that's the beauty, I think, of the planning up until now by the axis of resistance. They have been very careful not to allow a full spill out of war in the whole region, but to extend as long as possible this war of attrition in Gaza, on the border with Lebanon, in the Red Sea, to slowly but surely pick at the Zionist colony until it collapses on itself, like a building coming down, without falling on everybody else around it and destroying the whole neighborhood. And so that succeeded in Gaza, that succeeded up until now in the border with Lebanon, that succeeded in Yemen, and that succeeded with this brilliant work of the Iranian government and the military. The Israelis, as we saw, moved a few of their agents that are on the ground, the same ones that were filming the quote-unquote women's demonstrations last year or the year before in Iran, flew a few of their own drones that they had to activate a few of the air defenses that shot them down. That's all that happened. If the Israelis were able to hit anything in Iran, they would have stationed those same agents on the ground to be ready to film them. I mean, Hezbollah, in the attack that I described just before on Arab al-Aramsha, the Palestinian Israeli town in the north, had 3 people inside Arab al-Aramsha, inside the Palestinian town in the north of the Galilee, filming from 3 angles. The Israelis are freaking out. They're trying to figure out if there's infiltration by Hezbollah on the ground, or are there agents of Hezbollah on the ground in the north of Palestine to film these things. So you could, clearly from the evidence that we have, there was no Israeli attack on Iranian territory, but there was these, small drones flown by agents on the ground from inside Iran, and just wanted to scare people or make this media propaganda scheme that the West can carry, and then make it look like Israel was able to respond.
Yeah, I think you're right. Your thoughts on this $95 billion thing that happened in Congress? They had difficulty getting it through. They got it through. But when you look at it, most of the money is for restocking U.S. arms that have already been used or sent out in Israel and et cetera, or Ukraine. Most of that stuff can't be made for years. So they're placing orders for restocking because the industrial capacity can't produce it for years. I think if I'm not mistaken, the anti-aircraft missiles for like the Patriots, they can do like 500 or 600 a year. Wow. Considering the fact that it takes 2 missiles when these systems, most of your anti-aircraft systems, when they pick a target and they develop a firing solution, they fire 2 missiles. You got nothing there. But meanwhile, the people of the U.S. aren't thrilled with that, because of the issues. And this went down, and all of these members of Congress were waving Ukrainian flags afterwards, celebrating. But the people of America are not celebrating. The people of America are on the campuses, are in the streets, are shutting down bridges. Your thoughts on this divide between the ruling elite and the Zionists and the imperialists and the American people who are suffering economically?
I mean, I just saw a tweet by Senator Cotton a few hours ago. He's commemorating Passover, and at the same time talking about the program in the universities of the United States. I mean, apparently, this is a lesson to all the students in the United States. A pogrom is when you demonstrate against genocide at your university, not when you pogrom whole villages in the West Bank live on television. Okay? And similarly, CNN was, just published something, saying it's a Holocaust on campuses, literally. And so, again, a lesson to students in the United States. CNN says a Holocaust is when you demonstrate against genocide in your university, but it's not when you commit a Holocaust live on television in the Gaza concentration camp. The Western elite have lost the plot. They are entrenching themselves deeper and deeper in this position against all humanity. That includes their own children, because look, the Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Berkeley, whatever, these are the universities where the elite children are going. And that includes the daughter of Ilhan Omar and others. Ilhan Omar's daughter got arrested in Colombia. So this is now pitting not only the whole nation in the United States, or the Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, Black, Indigenous, Latino, leftist communities against the elite. No. This is now pitting families against each other on their dinner table. And the mass arrests that happened of the students and the professors at NYU and Columbia and others over the last 48 hours are, bringing us to the cusp of that Vietnam moment. If this continues, and I believe it will continue in terms of the demonstrations and the repression, because the genocide is going to keep on continuing in Gaza. If this continues, as we hear the fascists in the United States calling for the deployment of the National Guard against these students, we could see the National Guard shooting these students. Yesterday, there was confrontations at the New York police headquarters between the students and the professors. So we're getting there, and the repression is going to increase. And if we want to stop this genocide, if the United States population citizenship wants to actually change the course of the history of their own government's positions, if they want to affect their own future in this global human village, they have to persist in their opposition and raise the intensity of their confrontation with these undemocratic government representatives.
It's interesting you said that. There's an article in The Hill. GOP Senators Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton called on President Biden on Monday to deploy the National Guard to colleges, particularly Columbia University in New York City, where pro-Palestinian protesters have staged sit-ins. Now listen to this. It's time for Biden to call out the National Guard at our university to protect Jewish Americans. Here's what's interesting. My friend, a guy that comes regularly on our show, Dan Lazar, was there. He's an alumni. He's Jewish. And he talked about there are a lot of Jewish students here, right? In Germany recently, they were having a forum, an intellectual forum, to talk about the Palestinian issue. The German police came in, they broke it up. They said it was, anti-Semitic, blah, blah, blah. They would not even let people put up videos or run their videos on it. So they went to stop this anti-Semitic thing. And a lot of the people there were Jewish. So now they're saying we need the National Guard to protect Jewish Americans from Jewish Americans. That
you know what happened in Germany?
Go ahead.
You're just gonna. This is hilarious. Okay, so that was the Palestine Congress you were talking about, and it was organized by these Jewish organizations plus Palestinian organizations. The ex-finance minister of Greece, what's his name? the leftist ex-finance minister.
Ioannis Varoufakis.
Yes, he was flying
Ioannis
in to
Varoufakis,
speak
yeah.
there, and he was banned from entering Germany, and he's banned now for a couple of months from entering Germany. Similarly, the doctor from Gaza, the British Palestinian doctor, Dr. Abu Sitte, that is now the chancellor of a university in Scotland, was also banned from entering Germany. And yesterday, during these demonstrations in Germany, the police banned the use of any language in the chants and or in the speeches that is not German or English. That included the ban of, stopping speakers from speaking in Arabic, stopping Irish members of parliaments that were in the demonstration from speaking in their Irish language, and stopping Jewish Germans from speaking Yiddish and Hebrew. Apparently, it's banned now. Any language other than German and English in Germany, even EU member state languages. So this is the level of fascism we're getting to, and it's going to get worse. It's funny now, and we will laugh at it even more as the concentration camps start rolling, because there's nothing. If you don't fight against this, the only thing you can do is laugh about it.
Yeah, well, it appears to me, when I look at things like that, I always see signs of desperation. To me, these are signs of desperation. These are signs that they've lost it. Anytime the ruling elite have to use force against the working class, force against their people, it means that they have no argument anymore, that it's over, that they don't have anything. How are they going to start? For instance, I've said this. People are like, oh, America's going to start World War III. I said, where are they going to get a military from? If they were the way as furious as the youth in America are right now, as furious as they are, were they to say, okay, we've got a war for Israel or whatever the case may be, and we're going to draft the young people, they'd tear this country apart. They'd burn it down. They wouldn't go. What are you going to do? Say millions and millions of young people, they're all going to go into concentration camps, and who's going to put them there? So the warmongers have put themselves in a position where they're pushing for war everywhere, and the people that they would use for cannon fodder now must be beaten into submission, which means they wouldn't act as cannon fodder if asked.
Oh yes, and so the only future we can see is forced recruitment, enlistment, and I don't think
what they're doing in Ukraine.
Yes,
you know what I mean. They're chasing people down, beating them, throwing them in trucks, and dragging them to the front line.
Yes, and all these, of course, kids will not go, or their parents. It's going to be look.
Americans got a lot of guns. This ain't Ukraine. Americans got a lot of guns. You don't want to open. You don't want to open that can of worms in the United States.
Oh yeah. I mean, I personally think these students in these campuses should get a little bit more radicalized. Even, why don't they pick up the phone and call the Nation of Islam to come and provide security at these camps, okay? And if they're not willing to call the Nation of Islam to provide the security, then they should start building their own security corps. You're in a country where it is legal to carry arms, it is legal to protect yourself, and be ready before they bring the National Guard and shoot you, okay?
Wouldn't be the first time. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yes, and I think maybe having a presence like the Nation of Islam or other militias coming to defend the right of speech and right of assembly could ward off the deployment of the National Guard. It could ring bells in the heads of anyone that still has brain cells working in the government, because if the National Guard is deployed, if there's no opposition to that now, visible, clear opposition that a National Guard deployment could lead to armed resistance, then they will deploy this National Guard. They have to be threatened before. We don't want a situation of having to catch up to a deployment of the National Guard, of trying after the fact to organize in self-defense units. People should be ready for it now before it happens, so it doesn't happen. And I may be wrong, but I think this is where we're going.
Well, there's another issue here, and that is a historical issue. I mean, if you think of what was it, 1917 or whatever, the ruling elite would take a chance of losing it all if they deployed the National Guard. Here's what I mean. Historically speaking, if the ruling elite say to their police forces, their military forces, whatever, if they say, okay, start shooting the working class, that's a chance that oftentimes they're horrified to take, because historically, if they say, and if you think of the Russian Revolution, you think of St. Petersburg, okay, guys, I want you to drop your weapons. I mean, I want you to turn your weapons on the crowd, and I want you to fire the weapons and take the crowd out. If the National Guard says, wait a minute, those are our friends and our brothers and sisters. If they don't do it, the government falls every time. So the chance they're taking, not that they might not take it, if the government says to the National Guard, fire, take out your people, and the National Guard says, we're not going to do it, they've lost it. That's a gamble that they can lose everything. That creates an automatic revolution, because so that's something I think is potentially could happen here.
Oh yeah, and these National Guard members, they're all on social media, just like all of us. So, I mean, without even.
Yeah, I know young people who went in the National Guard for this reason, because they couldn't afford college. So they went in the National Guard so that they could get, college student loans, so they could get FHA loans, federal housing and social to get out. So you have people
not having to go to the army and war in the faraway land, so they safely protect their homeland. That's the idea of the National Guard.
Yes,
and if this happens, as you're saying, this is going to be problematic for a lot of these people. And I was saying, they're young, they're all on social media. Look at how the public opinion is just with social media. Mm-hmm. Imagine if this show was actually on broadcast television. Do you think there will be only these millions or tens and tens of millions of people out in the streets? If people were seeing what we're seeing on the national networks, this war in Gaza would have ended in the first week. No, but we're here locked out of all mass media, and just by the use of social media, we've won the hearts and minds of the majority of peoples around the world, and in the United States. And the more that the U.S. elite go against the will of the people, the more they will have to repress media and sources of information. As we saw, by the way, the campus community radio station at Columbia, the police attempted to shut it down while it's broadcasting from the encampment. They were going to take out the antenna. This is a moment that I don't remember even in the Vietnam era that a radio station was threatened by force to be shut down because of its live broadcast from a location. And we already see that the United States wants to ban TikTok. We know why, because
that's the Zionists push back against it. A lot of people don't know this. The two members of Congress who co-sponsored the bill to take out to get rid of TikTok, both of them had written op-eds 2 months before that saying TikTok has to be stopped because it's because of Israel. They said TikTok has pro-Hamas people. TikTok has to go. TikTok has to stop. We got to get rid of TikTok. And then 2 months later, the two of them co-sponsored a bill to get rid of TikTok. Getting rid of TikTok is all about a big part of it. A huge part of it is the Zionists looking at it saying, oh my gosh, 90% of the people, because it's all young people, 90% of the people here are putting up stuff that's detrimental to our cause. It has to go. And you see the reaction of their puppets in Congress.
Me and you are the older generation. I don't even know how to use TikTok,
Yeah,
but I see my kids. And I am shocked, because I thought like, okay, of course, it's going to be full of all these fun and makeup and whatever things. But I see their feeds when they're sitting beside me, and it's full of political contents, people giving lectures about world history. I was like, what is happening? There's actually, a whole generation that is getting their education from TikTok. And in comparison, we have Meta using the AI that they have now. If you open WhatsApp, it shows you AI on it. This AI is connected to Lavender, the mass killing AI machine that the Israelis used to eugenic massacre whole family bloodlines, end them in Palestine. So on the one hand, you have the Meta and how it's full collaboration with the genocidal machine of the empire. And on the other, you have TikTok that is not under control of the empire, that is all these voices of youth are mobilizing such huge effect in the world that the United States has its crosshairs on it and want to take it out. This is a huge difference in what is social media, and I don't think these social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram will survive longer if it continues like this.
I think you're right. People are getting obvious, it's getting obvious what they are. More and more people I know are going to Telegram, so there will be attacking Telegram. But it's like Rumble and Rockfin. Every time they attack one, another one pops up. So, the technology has gotten out of control. That's the one line. But technology has gotten out of control that we see with what's happened with Iran. Let me ask you this. We know, for some time the Zionists and the imperialists have been taking advantage of a sectarian rifts between the Shia-Sunni sectarian rift. Do you think that what's happening with Iran and Hamas resisting in occupied Palestine, with the success that Iran has had and Hezbollah has had fighting back against the U.S., etc., do you think that's affecting it in any way? Certainly, we know at the top, these ruling families, they're going to do what they're going to do because they got to keep power. But the people on the street that really kind of unfortunately embrace those rifts, what effect is this conflict having, and the willingness of the resistance, which, let's face it, is a Shia force? Interestingly, Hamas, they got some Sunni and what have you. But what are your thoughts on this rift and the effect of this conflict on that rift?
Yeah, you see, after 2006, when Hezbollah defeated the Israelis in their war of invasion in Lebanon, Hezbollah became, the most loved political party in the region. And Hassan Nasrallah, their Secretary General, became the idol in the whole Arabic world. They became like a Che Guevara kind of figure. So the United States, Israel, and all the Gulf vessels, and Turkey and Jordan, whatever, invested in manufacturing the Arab autumn, some call it the Arab spring, with these death squads, Wahhabi death squads going into Syria and what have you, and invested in this whole media to denounce Hezbollah for standing against these Wahhabi death squads and siding with the Syrian military. And so that moment of the Arab Spring, the West and the Zionists were able to destroy the public image of Hezbollah in the Arabic region and create this sectarian schism between Shia and Sunni around the battlefields of Syria. Well, that is all now destroyed. What the West spent on, and all these Gulf countries, the billions upon billions of propaganda to pump the hate between the two sects, is now gone, because everybody who is Sunni can see that it is Shia political movements and armed rebels that are the only ones defending the Sunnis of Gaza. They are the only ones that are supplying the weapons to the Sunnis in Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Without the Shia Islamic State Republic of Iran, there will be no resistance in Gaza. And so this is now, a huge win for Hezbollah. It's a huge win for, coexistence between Muslim sects. It's creating a new generation. We saw even here in Lebanon, and that was, I think, the moment that the Gulf vessels and the West alarm bells rang very loud in their head. We saw the Islamic group, which is a Sunni militia here in Lebanon, saying that they support Hezbollah. So we've had now, for the first time, a Sunni armed group outside the battlefield of Palestine or outside the Palestinian communities, saying they will fight on the side of Hezbollah, and praised Iran and praised the axis of resistance, and have begun operations in the south of Lebanon under the protection of Hezbollah. So this must be really scaring the intelligence community and in the West. And it's an indicator of where we're going. At this moment, there's nobody in the Sunni street that could be mobilized against the quote-unquote Shias of the axis of resistance, because nobody would want that to be recorded, that they stood against the only defenders of Palestine.
Let me ask you this about Africa before we go. Another announcement: Niger has now said to the U.S., out, you got to go, you leave. We found out that the U.S. initially said, no, we won't do it. But now apparently they're saying, yeah, because Russian military is starting to, and military advisors, military equipment. I suspected that the Russians would start arming them, much like they did, much like the Soviet Union did in the past to kick out the British, etc. One of the things that I've thought about is, in the event of a broader war, Africa, that the likelihood is that there could be Africans involved. There's a lot of Muslim people in Africa. There's a lot of people in Africa that aren't Muslims that are sick and tired of imperialism, being beaten, literally beaten to death by imperialism for years. Do you think this is spreading now? This anti-imperialism, this pushback against the West, is spreading to Africa. And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, even just a few hours ago, Chad, which is right beside Niger, announced that it wants the American troops to leave. So now we have, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. That's practically the whole Sahel, of the Sahara.
And Senegal Senegal now has a president who's going to be an anti-imperialist, a young guy, Faye. I expect that he's going to be joining the party.
So here you go. You see it. So, if the United States loses, and with it the French and whatever, lose the Sahel region, that will not only free those people and open up the possibilities of unification between these countries. These are people of the same tribes, speak the same language. They're all mainly Muslim. So that will happen. But it also will make a defense line for the Arab North African countries. Algeria will have its back safe. Libya will have its back safe. And this will, generate more confidence in even the North African Arabic countries to take more adversarial positions against the West. So, Algeria has to, because of the Wahhabi death squads that the U.S. was moving on its border with Niger and Mali, had to spend a lot of resources bringing all these troops to the south, all these checkpoints, all their surveillance, and what have you. Well, with good relations with these countries, and these countries being out of the influence of the United States, Algeria can concentrate its firepower on the Mediterranean and actually take its space within the trade routes that are there. And effectively, if it wants to, at one point, do what Yemen is doing in terms of projecting its sovereignty over its waters. And so it's a domino effect. The more countries escape Western hegemony, the more countries around them will be sucked into this sphere. And the further American troops get positioned away from these countries, the more possibility these countries will become more sovereign in their actions. The days are numbered. Look, yesterday I interviewed this professor from the Lebanese University. He's a professor of history of international relations. And I just want to bring it back to Ukraine and Palestine for a second here. If you look in history, both Napoleon and Hitler lost their wars against Russia. Why? Not only because of Russians are, fought bravely and so forth, but because also Napoleon and Hitler made the mistake of not investing enough in controlling Western Asia. So the Napoleon losing the battle in Palestine meant that he doesn't control all these trade routes and cannot project that he represents all Christendom or Christianity. Similarly with Hitler, his military going from North Africa trying to reach Palestine lost because he didn't invest in them enough and spent so much. And now what we saw and what we are seeing right now is that the United States was crazy to invest so much in Ukraine, okay, and not notice as its crown jewel, the Zionist colony was being ripened for the picking. And so if the United States, so the victory of Russia will actually not happen in Ukraine, it will happen in Palestine. The victory of China will not happen in Taiwan, it will happen in Palestine. The defeat of the American empire will not happen in the fields of Ukraine or Taiwan, it will happen in Palestine, and we're seeing that. And this is a historical fact. This is how geography determines the course of history. And if you don't know about geography, you cannot even predict the future.
Well, and if I had to pinpoint one place where it all started, or two particular things. Number one, the Red Sea with Yemen. Number two, with the attack on with the Iranians exhibition of their technological and military prowess. Before we leave, and I say this, the people of Yemen, this is the really heart of the resistance. And this is the heart of the resistance worldwide, because they're poor, because they don't have a lot of power, but they've got enough, and they've got the will to use it, and everything's buried 70 meters under the ground. Now everyone understands, with the US empire in the region, bury your stuff deep enough, they can't touch it. You can fight them forever. And your thoughts on, before we leave, what's happening in Yemen and the importance of that in the entire downfall of the US empire?
Yeah, Yemen still continues to target Israeli shipping and shipping related to the United States and the UK. They have declared the whole Indian Ocean to be a battlefield. So now they're firing further and further. And this is amazing. I mean, there's two kinds of empires: land-based empires and sea-based empires. And if you cannot as the United States it is a sea-based empire. If you cannot control the most important seaways in the world, and if you can't control the knots in all the economic routes in the world, which is Palestine and what's around it, then you will have to retreat to your natural geography, which is continental United States. And Yemen is speeding up this retreat, this fall of this naval empire, and as this fall happens, countries that will be, according to their geography, according to their land, they will be judged by that from that point on. So if there is no naval power, imperial power on your seashores, then you can actually, the only worries that you will have is your neighbors, and of course, the whole region of that triangle between Iraq, Egypt, and Yemen. This is the birthplace of civilization, but is also the base of and the core of land-based empires of old. The first empires coming from Iraq and Egypt and Yemen, and being land-based. And so a collapse of American projection of naval power will see a rise, a return of nations to the status that they deserve according to their landmass. We will see a return to that.
The last I'll say is this. There are people talking about the U.S., they're planning on entrapping China, surrounding them with the military. And this is the big one, that if all else fails, they can use their submarines to cut off China's access to the sea. They're looking at these choke points and, oh boy, we can cut off China, blah, blah, blah. They left out one thing. And again, with the axis of resistance gives you broad access around the world. So if the U.S. was to say tomorrow, well, here's what we're going to do. China, we're going to cut you off here, here, and here, so you can't ship anything in and out. China's allies could say, well, then in that case, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shut down the Straits of Hormuz and the Red Sea until such time as you release China's choke points. We will keep European choke points. We'll keep your choke points closed. So you decide who can hold out the longest. China with some of their choke points cut off with your U.S. subs, or the U.S. and Europe with the Straits of Hormuz, 30% of the oil shut off. If China doesn't get the oil, you don't get the oil. Europe doesn't get the oil. Nobody gets anything. So right now, what has been demonstrated is the U.S. can't. Their plan for being able to cut China off at choke points is thwarted exactly where you said, in the Straits of Hormuz, in West Asia. That ends any hope that the U.S. could have of shutting down, because to shut down China, that China's allies shut down the U.S. and Europe immediately also.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday, President Kim Jong-un, ordered emergency nuclear strike readiness and exercises, because the South Koreans fired a few missiles that are ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. What Iran showed us, what Hezbollah showed us, what the Yemeni resistance Ansarullah showed us is that in the case of a full-out war, American positions are going to be wiped out. American Navy vessels are going to be sunk very fast. And I think the Biden administration, seeing the response of Iran, understood that clearly. And this is why they rang the ear of Netanyahu and pulled him from his leash and said, okay, you can't touch Iran. You can bomb a few places in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq if you want to release your vengeance somehow. You can kill a few more Palestinians, but we're not ready to fight Iran. Okay, and that in itself showed China, showed Russia, showed North Korea, showed Venezuela, showed everybody in this globe that is in opposition to American imperialism, that it is more, weaker than the spider web, as Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah would describe Israel. It's actually can be now applied to the United States. It's all bluster. It's all Top Gun movies. It's all Spider-Man and the Avengers. That's all the United States is now, after wasting all its prowess and its economy and its weapons on genocides for the last 30 years. And now it's left alone standing in this field. Their European partners are even weaker. It's the collapse is coming. We just hope that the United States doesn't take us all down with it.
Yes. Once again, everybody, we're talking with Laith Marouf. Number one, make sure you share this video on all your social media platforms. Also, go to freepalestine.video. That's freepalestine.video. That's where Laith is doing his great work in West Asia. They're doing English language journalism to get the information out. Go to freepalestine.video and make sure you donate to keep them going. If you can't afford to donate, even if you can, share this on all your social media platforms. But if you can't afford to donate, just share the freepalestine.video website on your social media platforms, and make sure that along with that post that you tell your friends to go there and donate whatever they can. Laith Marouf, thanks a lot, brother. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Garland Nixon here. Share this video on all your social media platforms. Peace. We're out.